Wake up, little snoozy. Smell the smelling salt.
What's crappin' in mind, freaks? Welcome to
A Little Spot of Toast, the Broadsheet Morning Show.
with me, Hoss Bossman. Got a couple of fantastic chats to share with you today, mostly centered around knowledge fight, shows and works like it, and what makes them so effective as political communication, which is a euphemism for propaganda, yes, but since propaganda has such a negative connotation, a euphemism is necessary when we're talking about good propaganda, which knowledge fight is. Well, I would argue that it falls more under the category of like journalism, anthropology, something like that. But, there is a propagandistic element to it. Denotation, connotation. Are you being brainwashed, indoctrinated, or educated? Eye of the beholder kind of crap. We really are going to get right into this episode because it is late. I'll just say that Lil Nas X's Old Town Road is a great example of non-political art serving as a political statement, what with how it reached the top of the country charts when it first came out. A bunch of people complained because they're racist against hip-hop, I guess.
Turd in the graveyard.
Billy Ray Cyrus had to come out of retirement to validate it in the eyes of a lot of country fans.
God bless America.
Actually, I don't know if he was actually retired. That might be the most offensive thing I say all week. I actually think they took it off the
Country music
charts until Billy Ray swooped in and saved the day. Of course, Lil Nas X has really made a political statement with the way he's presented himself and his music and putting his queerness right out on Front Street like ever since then. So Lil Nas X, low-key, political as hell. It almost doesn't matter what the music is like, it's just if you're breaking those norms and showing people a way to be that goes against the status quo or the mainstream or tradition or whatever, then that's a political act. I just meant to bring that up when Bess, my first interview subject and new policy wonk friend, I'm going to call her, definitely a friend of the show, but when she brought up Lil Nas X, I meant to say something like that, and I forgot to because we got sidetracked. Well, it is 6:50 p.m. on Sunday, so tomorrow is my release date, the fourth Monday of every month. I meant to have the Jordan episode out tomorrow and do this one like a week ago, but hey, I'm at least doing one a month, and it's a lot of work.
It's actually in Revelations, actually.
I don't know, y'all. I don't have time to do all this crap. It's like I gotta pick something. I want to do all of it, like be able to do YouTube and make music and make the podcast, but I've got to peel back one of those things or something. I got to figure some crap out. Anyway, so that's why I'm going to shut up right now and make this a short intro so I have less stuff to edit. I'm going to make one theme song for both guests, like one for the two of them, and try to save time. I have not even started on their theme song yet, but I've done both the interviews, so that's something accomplished, and I have some stuff in my brain to draw from to get the right vibe. I will be back soon with the long-awaited return of Mr. Jordan Holmes of Knowledge Fight fame. I may release that sooner than a month from now, actually, since my school's spring break is coming up next week, and I'm going to try to get a lot of content made during that week off. I really don't take any time off. Every spare second I have is devoted to making this stuff and trying to grow the audience. So rate and review this podcast. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/HossBossman. Share my crap with people and support me on patreon.com at patreon.com/Hoss_Bossman. Find all my mini craps I make at www.hoss.fun. For all your Hoss needs. Here's the combo Dennis Gorman Bess Wonkton theme song. I am calling it, Hey There, what's going on with you? I'm going to call it Bess and Denis Are Policy Wonks. That's the title and the lyrics. Work smarter, not harder. And now, Bess Policy Wonkton.
Always nice to meet. Always nice to meet. Always nice to meet another policy wonk. Always nice to meet. Always nice to meet. Always nice to meet another policy wonk. Another policy wonk. Always nice to meet another policy wonk.
Hell yeah. Like I said in the message, the main thing I'm interested in, getting some thoughts from knowledge fight folks on or policy wonks on is what is it that you think makes knowledge fight such an effective piece of political communication? And if it helps at all with like sort of the idea, I guess I'm like kind of trying to get at or talk about is like the role that comedy, but also kind of art in general plays in affecting real world political change or, communicating political messages. In your opinion, what is it that you think makes knowledge fight so effective?
I mean, first of all, just the honesty with which Dan and Jordan approach everything. That they're out there to be the opposite of Alex. They are there to spread truth and to really dig in. It's like every episode is a deep dive, and so much of our political discourse is surface level. And I really love hearing just the truth, and the truth that is well researched from guys who are just, they're honest, they are straightforward, their agenda is not harmful, their agenda is to be helpful, rather than stirring up the violence that Alex does, or other, propagandists. You could include Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire people, who are really stirring up violence and hatred. There is a truth and a love, and for all the joking that we do about being a soft yes on white genocide and such, there's a real love and a real community that's come up around knowledge fight as well.
Case in point, right?
Yeah, I've made some good friends, just because we like this stuff together. And I, being disabled and mostly homebound, I feel like it's a way to reach out and affect some change.
Yeah, like helping like foster a community that kind of grew up around I guess like-minded people finding each other, that really grew up around a show that is all about and maybe just the attitude and the worldview that goes into the show, that's that where the guys are always like oriented around being like ethical, respectful, like even of the people, these fools that they're like ridiculing and stuff. Like, of course, that's a little more being measured is kind of more Dan's area, but Jordan, even though like he is over the top a lot of the time, like it's always very obviously still kind of like based and coming from a place of like empathy and love. I thought to reach out to some knowledge fight fans when I interviewed Jordan a month ago maybe, and I felt like I was like buttering him up too much. Like I kept prefacing every question with, and I'm a huge fan, so and I've been interviewing people of like varying levels of like people I admire or people who are like famous in some way for a long time. I used to be like an entertainment writer, and I still nerd out when I meet or get to talk to somebody who I like admire, but and I don't think that's like ever going to go away. But I was like reminded of do you know that YouTuber CoffeeZilla? Have you ever seen any of his videos?
Yes, I do like CoffeeZilla.
CoffeeZilla is awesome. He's got a really good like I think the way that he sort of grills people and interviews people is like that is the way our journalists should actually be, like not letting people get off the hook. He's
And
really
that's
good
why
at
I
that.
love Jon Stewart and the people who've done the Daily Show and who've come out of that, Colbert and John Oliver, Samantha Bee. These are all people who dig in deep, and they expect people and they demand that people answer their questions. And just getting that, beyond the, I don't want to say politically correct, because I think that's not used in the right way. There's an element of letting people go and not answer your questions that is prevalent in the debate sphere, and then oftentimes when people do demand answers, you get a lot of ugliness. But I think there's a real passion and love in all that Dan and Jordan do, and in the community as well. We all watched the trial together. we were all there saying, how much we loved the people who were really fighting back against Alex, all the Sandy Hook parents and children and friends, and we're missing a lot of that both the empathy and the accountability that I think really belong in our as a big part of our human experience. I came to Knowledge Fight through Behind the Bastards, and I think they do similar things there. And I always love it when those worlds intersect. Two of my favorite podcasts just getting together and diving deep and holding people accountable.
Were you a cracked reader back in the day?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes.
So do you listen to like Daily Zeitgeist? Kind of keep up with what all those folks are doing?
I keep up with Some More News.
Mm.
Although I haven't delved into Some More News in a couple of months. I have been feeling like doing that recently.
It's pretty not that it's like heavy in the sense, it's just like they go into a lot of detail, and you got to be ready to be like just hit with a whole bunch of like bad information all at once.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of what I do is get battered by the bad information while I make stuff for foster kids, and I do a lot of crafting. I think there's an element of another element of the community building that we get with Knowledge Fight is that a lot of us just do what we can for the people around us. And if I can do that while I'm listening to Knowledge Fight, Behind the Bastards, all of those other wonderful things, makes it feel like we can actually change things.
Yeah, that was very beautifully put. I got a little sidetracked. I'm kind of glad I did though, because
That's okay. I've got the ADHD brain is running, so I will get off topic as well.
Well, I do too, but actually I'm glad I got sidetracked, because what you're kind of commenting on my sidetrack there was how you wound up at that beautiful point. But the reason I brought up CopyZilla was because there was just this interview I heard with him recently. He was being interviewed by somebody, and I'd seen this video. They brought up this when he was on some podcast with some kind of right wing or one of those people. They asked him at the end of the interview, do you have any, and I think I brought this up with Jordan too, do you have any advice for like young people out there? And if you're used to watching, like, if you like Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, like all those people, like if you ask them that question, do you have any advice for young people out there? They'd be like, oh yeah. And they would just jump right on it, and they would just be like so confident about giving about his reaction to that question was like, I think just really telling about just the type of person he is. He was just like, I don't know. Advice to young people. I can't, like, that's, I wouldn't presume to, it was that sort of reaction, which is like, what I think somebody who is responsible with information and with their platform, like that is how you should react to something like that. And that's, I think, exactly how like Dan or Jordan would react to that. And a lot of the people in that world. And,
you bring up Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan, and there's such an opposite of that when you're looking at Dan and Jordan, and when you look at a lot of the men and mask aligned people within the Knowledge Fight communities. There's this wholesome masculinity that says, we've got our drink the respect women juice. We've got our being there for trans community, gay community, and you've got behind me, I've got my various flags. But I feel like in a lot of those conservative spaces, I used to be conservative. I grew up in a sort of moderate conservative town, which has now moved left, thanks be to powers. We're moving leftward here, but there's a lot of toxicity in those conservative communities, and I think in a leftist space like go home and tell your mother you're brilliant, and all of our various places, there's again compassion, empathy, building a community of people who are different, and just wholesomeness in within the strangeness of this world that we have all decided to spend a good chunk of time in. We had the Dreamy Creamy Summer fundraiser, and Ross Hawkman does his cool designs to raise money for trans pride things in the South, where they are very angry about things like that. And we're here, we're doing our best. And I try to be like Dan and Jordan. I try to have that passion that Jordan has, and I try to dig deep like Dan does. And yeah, I think just following the example that these guys set, even if they don't know how to express it as advice for distilled into a couple of sentences, we can look at them and say, this is a person that I would like to emulate, and this is a pattern I would like to emulate. I used to teach, and I think that this is something, if I were still teaching, I would tell my students, go listen to these podcasts, go look at how people dive into the depths of anger and find something to learn and a way to love people.
What subject did you teach?
I taught so many things. I taught English. I taught ESL. I trained to be a French teacher. I ended up also teaching computer and arts and crafts and a lot of stuff. I have taught many things.
Probably harder to find a job opening for a like French teacher, because there's usually only like one or two of them at every school.
I was the only French teacher at my school in Providence, Rhode Island, and I loved it. I loved it till my body wouldn't do it anymore.
Is that the part of the country that you're in and from?
Yep.
The Northeast?
Yep, I am in and from Rhode Island. I was born a little outside Chicago, but I grew up here. Go Cubs, go.
So one of the things I do a lot is talk about like political music. I'm a songwriter from I'm also a teacher, by the way. I teach
awesome.
I teach high school English. Yeah,
it's a valuable, very important thing to teach.
Written a lot of songs, and I've always been really into like political punk music and other genres too, but like I recently, over the past couple of years, started like doing video essays and stuff about political songs, and one of the things I want to start doing is having more guests on here to talk about like specific songs and stuff. But a topic that's like been kind of coming up a lot with that is like, what is it that what's the difference between a good political song and a bad political song? And that, and kind of more broadly speaking, like whenever I've asked people about their like what kind of political music they like, an example I always bring up is Chris Crofton, who is a frequent guest on the Daily Zeitgeist, if you listen to that, so kind of connected to that world there. But he said, when I asked him about political music he liked, he was like, I don't know, Prince. Is Prince political? It was kind of like, I guess Prince kind of is, Prince political just by virtue of being Prince, right? Like if you RuPaul was political, just didn't have to make any sort of explicit statement, and
asterisk, I know RuPaul is very much alive and still doing cool things. I just spoke about him in the past tense because I was thinking of how much of a statement she was making by being who he is. I'm switching up the pronouns because RuPaul once said, you can call me he. You can call me she. You can call me Regis and Kathy Lee. I don't care. So, in honor of that sentiment, I choose to use both he and she in the same sentence when referring to RuPaul, aka Regis and Kathy Lee.
That has a more, I don't know if it's more effective, but it's almost like it goes deeper than just getting you on like the surface level. If you sort of do like a lead by example more than like telling people how to be, and by sort of putting people into the like orienting people's like a good, positive, productive way to think about things, I think is something that the Knowledge Fight guys do really well. I just said a bunch of crap. Do you have any thoughts on any of the jumbled stuff that I just said?
Well, if we're talking political music, I used to go to the Newport Folk Festival every summer. Nowadays, I can't even catch the tickets before they sell out. But I remember watching Arlo Guthrie my first time going, and then his dad as well. Both Arlo and Woody Guthrie, their music is just, it hits my soul. Pete Seeger, a lot of the old Union music and older country music, and then there's some newer country as well that is not the rah Christo-fascist stuff, but your Lil Nas X. I've got a friend from my high school, college, or sorry, not high school, college. I can talk.
That'd be a funny name for like a fake college in a movie or something. High school college.
It would. High school college. No, my college choir. I have a friend, Willie Carlisle, who we haven't spoken in a long time, but he recently got some awards for his queer country music, and I think there are a lot of really great musicians who are making political points that aren't maybe explicitly, you may not think of them as political, like watching Lizzo perform with just the joy that she has in her big black body, and getting that love out there. I recently started dating someone who's really into Indigo Girls, and we're singing along to get that together. But political art, I think, hides pretty much anywhere you look, and it can be really stirring. It can be jingoistic and weird. It can be it can come from everywhere. Most of the art that I do isn't I guess explicitly political, but the reasons that I make what I do is, I guess, sort of a reflection of both my politics and my faith, that we have to look out for each other. We have to build community, and that's part of why I do what I do. I do a whole lot of fiber arts, knitting, crocheting, spinning, and it's all just to give, help someone else get a shot at life. And I think that's sort of what we see in these podcasts that we love, and the media we love, that there's fun to be had, there's joy to be had, and there's and we gotta look out for each other and help each other.
Well, I think, again, beautifully said. I guess, is there anything else you'd like to add? Like I said, I got to release this tomorrow, so I should probably not make it too long of a conversation. But I would like to have you, if you are a big fan of like folk music. That's something I don't really know a lot of people personally who are like really into like political folk music. So if you could be turning it over in your head, if you like think of a song that you would like to come on again and like discuss sometime, by all means, like feel free to reach out, and I'll do the same.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, you have a great one.
You too. Wasn't that great? Now here's Dennis Gorman.
Cannot give equal weight. We cannot give equal weight to a point of view that's batshit crazy.
Batshit crazy.
Batshit crazy. Batshit crazy.
Batshit crazy.
Batshit crazy.
Oh, you see my dog in the background.
Yeah.
Say hi, Mo.
Hey,
you say you're a sports writer, right?
Yep, sports writer for the Associated Press and Newsday and the Toronto Star. So I work for a lot of places.
Right on. Is that like kind of what you always wanted to do? Do you feel like you sort of like lucked out in getting to like just kind of focus on something you love all the time?
Yeah, I mean, my dad made it pretty clear early on that I was not an athlete. So at that point, it was just figure out how you're going to make money, figure out what you're going to do with your life. because he was like, I'm not going to prop you up when, when he was 80 and I was whatever. So I always liked reading. I always liked writing. I always liked sports. And I figured, oh, well, I can, sports journalism is probably the way to go.
For sure. Yeah. That, I mean, if you get to like write about something you love, I mean, that's one of the reasons I love, I kind of chose to be an English teacher is because I have such a like wide range of interests and you can sort of incorporate any of that into English class. You can read and write about anything, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think I probably love reading and writing more than I love sports, and I really love sports, but I appreciate good writing and really good books. And so just like whenever I read something that's really good, it's just like it doesn't have to be sports. It hits me the right way.
Is I guess we can kind of segue into talking about knowledge fight because the reason,
Sure.
ladies and gentlemen, this is Dennis Gorman, right?
Gorman, yep.
Is that right? Okay. This is Dennis Gorman, a policy wonk, I don't know, maybe a technocrat even, a knowledge fight fan, somebody I met in the Facebook group. Go home and tell your mother you're brilliant. And I just put a message out there asking if anybody wanted to say some words on what they love about knowledge fight. And I'll give you like a little bit of a preface. I had Jordan Holmes on like the fifth episode of my show or something like that. So he was a lot of these like, leftist or, left-leaning creators out there are like super helpful to smaller creators, which is really nice. And so, yeah, he came on the show and I actually split it into 2 episodes. We talked for so long. And finally, that was like 2 years ago. And that was like one of the highest viewed or downloaded episodes I'd ever had. And I think it was with good reason. It was a really good one. And and so I finally asked him to come back, and he was again just like super responsive and all, really nice guy. I asked him, during the interview, I felt like I was buttering him up a little bit too much, talking about like how ethical knowledge fight seems to be to me. And I was just kind of what I had on my mind was like their attitude and their presentation of everything is so effective for so many different reasons. And you as a journalist maybe can speak to that in a unique way, perhaps, that like, what is it that drew you to Knowledge Fight, and what do you think it is that they do that makes their show and their message so effective?
I follow David Bixenspan on Twitter, and I want to say it was not this past January, but the January before, I guess January 2022. And he had mentioned, that he listens to Knowledge Fight, and it's a terrific podcast, and the hosts, cover Alex Jones. And living in the New York City tri-state area, I'm relatively close, to Connecticut. So, and not that Sandy Hook is in my backyard, but it's not all that far away. And so, and that story certainly resonates here for New Yorkers because it's so close. So I figured, all right, I'll give it a listen. And I forget which episode it was. Hour and a half later, I was hooked. It was just Dan kind of breaking down Alex's arguments or Alex's talking points point by point and why there's such bullshit. Jordan, his hysterical laughter, but also his righteous anger. Because let's be honest, Alex Jones has ruined a lot of lives, and he's become fabulously wealthy doing it. And frankly, I don't think mainstream media has done a good enough job in covering an Alex Jones because, and we certainly learned this during the Trump era, we can't give equal weight to both sides. If one side says it's raining and the other side says the sky is yellow, one side is legitimately fucking wrong, Yeah. So, and we shouldn't say, well, Alex Jones says the sky is yellow. No, that we need to be able to point out this is a flat out lie. This never happened, and the fact that they, are willing to push that they're willing to push back on Alex's lies, that they're willing to criticize mainstream media, I think is healthy, and I think it's a positive.
Totally agree. Very well said. I mean, something that occurred to me just now, their presentation of things sort of like has this, it's not centrist. It's almost like what you mentioned there about like, the media doesn't do a good enough job, and that they, I can't remember exactly how you put it, but that they will say like Alex Jones says this, and then everyone else, who's credible says this other thing, right? Instead of like being clear about like where the misinformation is and stuff. And what it kind of struck me that I'd never really thought of it this way, that like all of that, centrist sort of what people call it, like, civility, I guess the word for it. And this idea of like, we're going to be like overly objective NPR or maybe like CNN style. It's almost like the Knowledge Fight guys actually do what those mainstream sources who say they're trying to be objective are saying they're trying to do. Like they're calling it in a very objective way. But when you actually do that, it doesn't look like, Republicans and Democrats, for instance, have like the exact same validity to their views. So does that make sense to you? Does that resonate with you at all?
Absolutely. Because, and again, this didn't start with Alex. I mean, go back to the Obama administration, go back even before that to like Glenn Beck. Someone would say something just, is it all right if I curse?
Sure.
They would say something incredibly fucking batshit crazy. And, the Washington report, the Washington press corps, the whatever would say, we're afraid as reporters and editors and our publishers, and they're are afraid of being labeled as, as liberal. So we're going to give equal weight to both sides. And we can't, because it's not objective. What I think the problem was, especially during the Trump administration, we had far too many Washington reporters acting as stenographers. And I subscribe to a theory from Charlie Pierce of Esquire. He's a friend of mine for a long time. He said we cannot give equal weight to a point of view that's batshit crazy. If it's then what are we doing? And I think that's right. So when Alex says, the globalists are coming to get us, it's like there's no proof of that. All you're trying to do is scare people. And frankly, it's an old playbook. I just started yesterday David Corn's book American Psychosis, and it's about how the Republican Party willingly, fell into conspiracy theories. And chapter 4 was all about the John Birch Society and all the conspiracies that they put forth. And before that was Joe McCarthy, and all these people are just it's an old playbook, but it's effective. You demonize someone who's different, whether they're Catholic, whether they're Black, whether they're whatever. And a lot of people have made a lot of money for many years doing this, and they become very powerful. But now the problem is the crazies have taken over the party, and now it's being led by like the MTGs and the Alex Joneses.
It's like they either find a kernel of truth or some sort of like unknown that they can like latch onto and claim they have an explanation for. That tendency of, it just seems like so many people nowadays, this tendency of like, well, I don't understand something, or I'm going to be really, really skeptical of stuff. And it's like, that's great to be skeptical, but then they're so selective about it. And yeah, that's it's a huge like problem in our society right now that I feel like we gotta like figure out.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I think this current Dominion lawsuit against Fox News, if Dominion is successful, will be a positive writ large for the media industry, because we can make the argument we have to have a shared set of facts. We can't keep, because right now we have, frankly, two Americas. We have a normal America, and we have the America that that watches Fox News, that watches OANN, that watches Newsmax, that
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones and Steven Crowder and all these complete lunatics, and it's splitting our country apart. And I think on an intellectual level, on a social level, on a certainly an educational level, and I do not think the nation can survive if we have multiple realities.
Totally agree. And yeah, and I think that that is a huge like function that something like Knowledge Fight serves. And the fact that they're so ethical about it and that they really are like balanced like in an appropriate way that actually like deals with reality. I think it's a very, very necessary for like educating people, even though it can be like a really silly kind of show, right? And it's about a really stupid thing, which is Alex Jones, right? But anything else you want to add about a Knowledge Fight? Any like specific, things that you learned from them or that you think they've done particularly well?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure the formulaic objections are to me are just the best episodes because you hear these people almost in real time in the depositions, the Darias, the Owen Schroyers, the Kit Danielses, and you realize that these people are it's not an act. These people are legitimately damaged human beings, and which is tragic on one hand, but on the other hand, but I think on the other hand, it's instructive. We need to be able to, as a society, teach people legitimate facts. We need to be able to teach, critical news gathering skills, news, trying to think of the word here. So
Like media literacy is what
yes,
I teach high
exactly.
school, so I those little pieces of terminology I'm actually
Yes.
doing right now. Like I'm working with the enrichment groups, which is I teach ninth grade English, and we since pandemic a bunch of kids, well, most of our kids are reading below grade level, so we had this like initiative to get everybody up to grade level in ninth grade this year. And all of the students who have made it to grade level or above, I'm like doing, extra stuff, more challenging stuff with them. And I started doing, I'm like, I'm going to do a critical thinking unit for the rest of the year, basically, because like that's something I've always, if I could add one class to the high school curriculum in America, it would be like critical thinking, cognitive bias, logical fallacies, media literacy, something with those things incorporated.
Yeah, and that's so important, especially now with our media ecosystem as fragmented as it is. We need to be, we as a society need to be able to differentiate between what is real news, what are facts, and what is crazy bullshit. And and so I think that's important. And I also think going forward, we as a nation and our political leaders are going to have a serious talks about expanding our social safety nets, because you have people now in positions of power who are, you can make the argument, are mentally unwell. The fact that they are serving in Congress, or were the president of the United States, should scare the shit out of everyone, because these people do not belong anywhere near Capitol Hill in the White House, or governor's mansion, or mayor's office, or in any position of authority. So we need to protect the nation.
Yeah, and that you just kind of reminded me of like when Trump was first elected, or maybe running up to the election. I just remember the only thing I could think to say to people whenever I would, argue with somebody I went to high school on Facebook, like about, Trump being an idiot or whatever. And it's just like, look at him. I mean, and that's not like a body shaming, anything like that, or age or something. It's like, no, just like watch him just be a person and tell me that guy is fit to like lead anything. And that right there was probably the like, probably for most people in America, that was like when they really finally understood and it clicked that, yeah, we're sitting in the same, I've heard this analogy from somebody, but sitting in the same movie theater watching completely different movies right now.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, be honest. This is a man who ran casinos which literally lost money. That is incredibly fucking hard to do, you know. But then it also goes back to, I think, our media ecosystem. Especially here in New York, he was always someone who sold a lot of newspapers, whether it was a New York Post, New York Daily News. Put him on the front page because he would say something completely outrageous.
Mhm.
Sells a ton of papers. Then when he kind of relaunched after the early '90s bankruptcy with The Apprentice, and obviously the way he was portrayed, big shot New York business tycoon, billionaire, and he's making all these decisions, and that plays well to a certain subset of people, and you know because it's well, he knows what he's doing. He's a billionaire. He literally inherited his fortune from his father, who built row houses in Queens and Brooklyn. It wasn't like he didn't earn it. He just dumb lucked into it. And then certainly if you go to the 2016 election, in 15 and 16, what did the cable networks do? They focused on him all the time, his stupid rallies, the speeches, because in a way it's entertaining, right? You don't know what he's going to say. He's going to say something stupid. He's going to do his idiotic dance. He's going to make jokes, and people are going to laugh and have a good time. But if you actually watched it with a critical eye and listened to what he was saying, he was putting forth fascist, authoritarian ideas that should scare the shit out of everyone. When he's telling people, to punch protesters in the face, or that he's going to bomb other countries, like, there's nothing about that is quote unquote conservative. I mean, that's just him being an authoritarian thug. In the media industry, I think writ large needed to do a better job of saying this is an unwell man. This is a man who's positing ideas that are anti-American.
That, all of us kind of having a sort of shared value system of any, like, in any capacity. There are some like non-negotiables in our society, right? There's like, don't steal, don't kill, sexual assault, and these kinds of, it's like, no matter what, where society is going to come out on the whole against those things. Racism has kind of become that way, as in explicit racism has become that way, right? Like using the N-word is like kind of a non-negotiable in our society, right? I've been wondering, like, is there a way to like try to start pushing something into the direction of a non-negotiable, like some things, good things like cooperation, like if you don't want to like cooperate with your community or something like that, like that's like frowned upon in society, as opposed, I mean, in America, very individualistic, but so those sorts of ideas that, civility and all the stuff that Trump disrupted, like in some ways, I think that it's like maybe the only kind of silver lining, some good that could come of it, is like the idea of there's not just this one specific type of person who can be president. Like, think Trump kind of shattered this idea that you have to like behave in this very specific sort of like American, like ideal masculine sort of way, and by acting like completely not like that. And people's idea of what's acceptable might be evolving in a direction, and I guess we should be trying to mold that into a positive direction. I don't know. Sorry, I'll distract you because these goddamn dogs.
No, but I think that's right, because you look at what people thought was as presidential pre-Trump. You had to act you had to act like Obama. You had to act like Bush. Clinton, for all of his moral failings, if he was on the world stage, you didn't say he's going to embarrass the country. Trump came in and shattered that, but now it's opened up the idea of the presidency. He's opened up Congress to a place where an AOC can run for Congress and win, and Ilhan Omar, and you could think President AOC. You could think of I'm trying to think of a quote unquote firebrand Democrat in the Senate, and I'm blanking on name, or like a Brian Chance, a John Fetterman. Like in the past, would John Fetterman get anywhere near Congress? No, because people would say, oh, he's too tall, he's got the goatee, he's bald,
Mm.
he's too plain spoken. Now it's like, hey, why can't John Fetterman be president? And I think that's a positive, but we also have to have people who, if they're going to break the glass ceiling, know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That was the biggest problem with Trump. Well, that was among the bigger problems with Trump. There were
Yeah.
many problems with Trump, but he didn't know what he was talking about. And if you read any of the billion books that came out during his presidency or post presidency, or you watch legitimate cable news networks, the Republican leaders in the House and Senate hated him. Like they despised him. They thought he was a moron
Mm.
because members of his cabinet thought he was stupid, because he
Yeah.
was, but they didn't have the courage to publicly say it. So, you got stuck with this idiot. But to me, it goes back to the point that breaking the glass ceiling is great. Opening up previously closed doors, great. But the person has to be qualified.
Yeah, and that we have a lot of work to do, sort of like rebuilding the narrative, I guess, culturally, of like what that means to be qualified for president, and I guess like cross the threshold of like the personality type that we would like. And yeah, it's a mess. And I mean, I think it's a mess, to borrow a phrase that Dan uses all the time on the Knowledge Fight, that there's definitely like a parallel there between, Alex Jones and Trump, in the sense of like how they're so ridiculous and silly that it almost like gives them this like opening to like slip in. Actually, I'll ask you like one more sort of substance question related to that. But first, I just want to let you know that if I ever am going to do, which at some point I'm sure I will, do like an episode that involves like sports stuff at all, definitely having you on the show if you'd be willing to come on. And
Sounds
I'd like to talk to you again sometime. This has been a good conversation. And I'm thinking about doing some more like kind of like conversation stuff, because I've been doing video essays about political songs. And I've been thinking it might be fun to start doing more regular episodes where I have people on to like talk about a song with a political theme or message that they like a lot. So maybe you could be thinking of that. And if you think of a song you'd like to talk about, maybe we could do this again.
That sounds great. Absolutely.
So last substance thing I'll ask you about is it's something that I tend to ask about on the show related to the music politics thing. I'm gonna put this. Well, okay, I'll be specific with it, kind of related to what we were just talking about. Do you think that humor can sort of undercut a message? There's a couple of movies I kind of have in mind, sort of related to the whole not taking somebody seriously until you do thing. Is The Black Klansman, which I think is a really good movie.
Sure.
And the Hitler one that Taika Waititi made. What is it? You know what I'm talking about. The one with the
Kid?
yeah. What was that called?
Yeah.
Oh, Jojo Rabbit.
Yes. That was really good.
So yeah, I like that one too. And so what I'm thinking about is like how, and maybe you can kind of use those movies or something else like a touchstone. So those obviously have like political messages, right?
Sure.
But to what I would say, like, in my opinion, like Black Klansman walks the line very well between having too much humor to the point of it like not being able to take the message seriously, and having like not enough to where you're kind of like exalting the subject or something like that. How do you, I don't know, do you have that's not really even a question. Do you have like some thoughts, I guess, on how comedy affects like a political message?
I think comedy can positively affect a political message. Like you said, in Jojo Rabbit and Black Klansman, those characters used humor to take the piss out of David Duke and out of Hitler, and I think that's positive. And if you look, certainly Knowledge Fight does that with Alex. The late night hosts, Colbert, John Oliver, they did that with Trump. It was certainly effective because Trump and Alex and all their supporters were, every day they were mad because John Oliver insulted Trump about something or made a joke about Trump, or Colbert did, or whoever. So I think humor can take the piss out of some of these people, but like you said, it's a very fine line, because you don't want it to be, you don't want it to get to the point where it's just like, oh well, we're just laughing at this guy and we're not taking what he's saying seriously. Dan and Jordan take what Alex says seriously. That's when you get to the point that, okay, this is not normal. This is dangerous. And these people they need to be covered in a different way. And in some ways, I think maybe even in a more honest way.
Totally agree. So, do you have like a blog? I know you said, you write for various publications, but do you have like a personal anything, like a blog, any kind of like writing that you do, like, your own thing?
Well, I mean, I have a blog. It just has links to all of my published writings. So it's myfreelancewriting.blogspot.com. It's a terrible URL, but eventually, one of these days, I will eventually create a website with all my stuff on it. You can follow me on Twitter at Dennis Gorman, DenisGorman. You can find me on Facebook, Dennis Gorman. I'm in the Go Home and Tell Your Mother You're Brilliant Facebook group. I'm pretty active. So so feel free to reach out. I'm always willing to have a conversation.
One more thing. Have you maybe recently written something, published something that you think, the sports interested or maybe sports curious knowledge fight / well, not knowledge fight fans, Broadsheet fans, much smaller group, fans of my show. Any recent things you've written that you think they might find interesting?
Yeah. So a few months back, I was covering a Brooklyn Nets practice, and this was when the team had suspended Kyrie Irving for posting the link to the anti-Semitic movie on his Facebook and Twitter. And so this practice, the Nets owner Joe Tsai released a statement saying that he had met with Kyrie Irving. He and his wife had met with Kyrie Irving, and they came to the conclusion they didn't think Kyrie was racist. So and I ended up having to write about that. If you go through the search engine on Newsday's website, type in Dennis P. Gorman and just keep scrolling through until you find it. It's, I want to say, late November, early December-ish, I wrote the story.
Okay, and I'll also, anybody listening right now, that'll be in the description of the episode as well. I'll find it and put it in there so you can just click the link.
Yeah, and I think in that story, I referenced that Kyrie Irving had posted a video prior to the Nets training camp starting. He posted a 20-year-old video on his Instagram of Alex Jones ranting about the New World Order. And so, yeah, I had, was able to, slip in an Alex Jones reference. I wanted to somehow work a knowledge fight reference in there. I just couldn't come up with one at that time. So that's a failing on my part.
Well, if you ever drop any Easter eggs, knowledge fight stuff in any of the articles you publish, like, you should post about it on the Facebook group.
Yeah, let me go back through the archives, and I will find stories that I've written, and if there are any Alex Easter eggs, I will for sure share the link.
Right on. Well, Mr. Gorman, thank you so much for your time today and for your wise words for agreeing to do this. And I guess we already did the plugs, but once again, follow Dennis Gorman on Twitter at
Dennis Gorman.
All right, Dennis Gorman. And links to all the stuff will be in the description. Thanks again, Mr. Gorman. I hope you have a wonderful evening and weekend.
You too, my friend. It was great doing this.
Thanks a lot. Good night.
Bye.
Hope you love those chats as much as I did, you franks. Bye, fam. See you next time for the return of the amazing Jordan Holmes. YouTube.com/HaasBossman, Patreon.com/Haas_Bossman, www.Haas.fun, etc. I am going to play us out with something. I'm going to play us out with, actually, I'm going to play the rough mix of my cover of Five Iron Frenzy's Giants. So y'all will get a little taste of the song that's going to be in that video that I've been working on for a million years. It is like almost done. It's good. But I think this cover turned out really well. Like I said, it is a rough mix, and I think I'm actually going to re-record the vocals because I started working on this track so long ago that I have since gotten a new, better mic. So here's my cover of Five Iron Frenzy's Giants. Hope you like it, and if you do like it, stay tuned because there's going to be a video essay about that awesome song coming soon, and it is elaborate. Oh, and why not just, flood the soul of every sentient being you encounter with healing light? Love ya. Mwah.
When no one looks, the clouds come rolling in. And under darkened skies, the buildings grow big teeth and eyes. They breathe and walk through unending doors. Eating restaurants and barber shops and hardware stores with catchphrases and jingles, stealing concrete lies. The corridors of Babylon are craning for the skies. Who's behind that curtain anyway? Who pulls the levers and tells the lies? Giants roam the land today, gaining dominance with every stride. Oh, don't you cry for the mommies and pops. Nothing but dry eyes for integrity's demise. Hooking machines grind as whistles blow. Corporate Darwinism crushes everything below. Advances in efficiency, increasing productivity, are narrowing the margin for liberty. Who's behind that curtain anyway? Who pulls the levers and tells the lies? Giants roam the land today, gaining dominance with every stride.
This world is such a gimme. You want to be successful? You want to be like Trump? Push. Step. Crush. I mean, if this is truly a melting pot in the country and you care about it, Lady Liberty got a hand like this, she really loves us, then we really need to be like that. I think there is a way. It just takes to be revolutionary. That is not idealistic, that's just real.
This is technically content.